Now, the 21st of July 1969, the day man walked on the moon. It was one of those moments in history where we all remember where we were. You guys weren't in the well, I remember where I was, in the school gym, watching it on a black and white TV.
Aww. But it holds special significance for the New South Wales town of Parkes, home to the famous Dish, of course. And Eddie, you've been to the Dish to play some cricket and meet some of the Australians involved in the moon landing 50 years ago.
Yeah, what a fantastic experience this was. It was one small step for man Sam McCoshy, one giant leap for the small town of Parkes. There are a few members of that close-knit team still living in town and others continuing the legacy of that incredible Apollo 11 mission.
It felt like the whole world was watching, waiting for those now famous words.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The pictures were broadcast live from the moon, direct from Australia.
21st of July 1969, when man first set foot on the moon, it was watched by 600 million people worldwide, 1/6 of mankind at the time. And I was one of those people. I was a 6-year-old schoolboy, sitting cross-legged on a cold wooden floor in Sydney, and we watched it on the little black and white television screen.
Inside the CSIRO Parkes Dish, John Sarkissian now works in the control room where engineers from Australia and America combined forces to make history. The first steps, the flag, even a song and dance routine.
I was strolling on the moon one day.
We actually saw it all first, just.
In Australia, audiences saw the moonwalk 300 milliseconds before the rest of the world, about a third of a second before everyone else. And so that was something that all Australians took pride in at the time.
Especially David Cook. He was a radio receiver engineer at the Parkes Dish in 1969.
We wanted to make sure that what we were doing was done properly and didn't fail. We didn't want to be known as the one who caused this thing to fail, and we didn't get any pictures at all.
But it did almost all go horribly wrong.
The day in 1969, John, was a little bit like this, wasn't it?
It was, just like today. It was overcast, dark, raining. The only difference was it was very windy on the day. We had winds of around 70, 80 kilometres an hour.
Just like in the movie, there was an almighty storm.
Moments before the moonwalk was to begin, the dish was fully tipped over with the bottom edge only about this high off the ground, and it was at its most vulnerable when those two gusts of 110 kilometres hit the dish, slammed it back against its zenith axis pinions and caused the tower to shudder and sway.
But not everything in the dish is historically accurate. The very first pictures actually came from NASA's Honeysuckle Creek station outside Canberra. The control room in Houston switched back and forth before deciding the Parkes pictures were the best. As for arguments with the Americans, not so, says David.
There was no animosity between us and the Americans. We were very, very friendly to the Americans. There was no tension between us at all.
And what about playing cricket on the dish, seen on the big screen and since then repeated on the small one?
What about cricket? Did you play cricket on the dish?
No.
What a shame.
The day anybody went and played cricket on the dish would be the last day of their job.
Instead, as Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin danced around on the moon, David remembers going outside and looking up.
The moon was still in the sky, thinking to myself, well, what an amazing thing that is. There's 3 men up there, 2 of them are walking along the surface, and we helped them put them there.
He took a photo.
At the same time you were taking this photo, Buzz Aldrin was taking another photo from the moon.
So understand. So he looked out of the spacecraft and could see New South Wales down there, and then he could see a storm, and he took a photo. So we've got a picture of a storm from 2 different directions.
Was there a sense of relief, elation?
Well, I suppose we were pleased, yes, yes, we were pleased that finally they were up there on the moon, and of course had to come back.
And they did, landing back in the ocean before receiving a hero's welcome at home and around the world, seen here in Sydney in November of that year. 50 years on, will history ever be repeated?
The Apollo program ultimately cost the United States about $25 billion in 1969 dollars. But depending on how you count it, in today's money, it'd be close to $500 billion, $500 billion. And that's one reason why it hasn't been repeated.